Hi, so this is a bit of an impromptu video on choosing what to get your valor points from. Now, last week, in the first week of the patch, it was quite easy. You wanted to get all the valor you could because you wanted to upgrade as many items as you could. But in the second week, if you've done all that, then you don't actually need to get the full maximum possible amount of valor in this week to upgrade everything. So there's a bit of choice. And I've been preferring to do LFR rather than PuG the mythic dungeons. And some people think, well, that's a bit mad because a mythic dungeon takes no longer than a wing of LFR, possibly a bit shorter. And you get as much valor as 2 wings of Hailfire Citadel and 4 of any other type of wing. But it's really just a frustration level. Now, LFR, don't get me wrong, it can be hugely frustrating. Last week it's actually really good. This week it's back to being god-awful. It's got an Iskar here. So we've got a tank that's dragging the bloody boss miles away from anywhere. It's just like when I first joined my current guild. And for no reason at all. But you don't get mad. I mean, the thing is, no matter how daft they are, and it includes, like, when I kept getting aggro on things, not because the tanks are just so badly geared that my damage is just out aggroing them, but simply because they're not even aware of what they have aggro on. They're not attempting to taunt things when it's on me. I mean, if they were taunting something, then a few seconds later after the taunts wear off, it's back on me. Fair enough. That would be fine. I mean, you've got this mad situation here on the split. We run back here, and it'll not be long before I've got aggro on these things. He's putting the skull on the lowest priority target, which is always stunning. But is it a big problem? Not really. It's annoying for me because I'm tanking something that I'm considering the highest priority target, especially as no one is actually interrupting this bloody thing. But you don't expect it in LFR. So I just had a little quiet word at the end. I just said, look, you know, don't drag the boss over there for no reason. He says, oh, I've got a reason. It's because of winds. It's like the winds don't even push back on LFR. You run against them. It's not an issue. But anyway, and the same thing happened on the other bosses as well. And this particular tank on Velhari, I didn't record that one. Didn't even get in on the boss. It wasn't even there. So I ended up tanking again the boss for a fair amount of time until I died. But again, you know, it's not an issue. Did we wipe? No. It just chased people round the room until eventually, I think it was only the healers left, DPSing it down and killed it. No problem at all. In the following LFR that I did, wasn't as bad, but still strange situations. Ended up tanking again, not because the tanks weren't taunting things off me, but just because there were no tanks on Manaroth. We're getting towards the end here. One tank, I don't even know how he's somewhere different. I don't know whether he died and was... You're not usually able to release, are you? So I have no idea why he's nowhere near this actual boss. Because, whatever. The other tank died, so it's just chasing after a couple of people until eventually it aggroes onto me. And then I'm spending the time tanking it, thinking to myself, oh, how long before there's a battle res up for that tank? Because at the moment there's none. Again, bit of a warning. If you're in LFR, can we please not use battle reses on non-tanks? Anyone else dies, who cares, quite frankly. Even if your top DPS dies, no one cares. So yeah, but it's quite good that I was able to tank for so long. I wasn't able to tank it forever though, but I was keeping a careful eye on this time and thinking, oh no, it's just over a minute at this point. What can I do to stay alive? You're thinking of all the things you could do to stay alive. But I mean, the other thing about LFR is that I don't feel... I mean, I'm not going to blame the tanks in this particular situation. I mean, all right, one tank is clearly cocked up because they're not here. But at the same time, someone presumably pulled when they weren't here. So even though it was a good long time we were waiting anyway, I don't know why that other tank wasn't here. Nonetheless, someone else has pulled without that tank being here. But I don't feel able to moan at tanks in LFR, even when they are pretty bad, like in the previous one, simply because I've gone in as DPS. I could have signed up as a tank, and then it really doesn't matter if the other tank, you know, does something really awful because, all right, I don't want to get into a taunting fight, but at the same time, if they die, it's not a problem. I'll just solo tank it. But again, even in this situation, the boss died. So it's no issue. You just sort of suck it up. It's LFR. What do you expect? Blah, 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 blah. And that's why I don't mind LFR. Yes, it sort of upsets you a little bit when you're sort of used to things, raids being done differently in your own organised raid guilds. But at the same time, LFR is LFR. You know what it's for. It's not for organised raiders. If there were only organised raiders doing it, there would be no LFR. But nonetheless, after the 2 wings, where I was thinking to myself, do you know what? Oh, this is bad even for LFR. I thought, I'll just do a Pug Mythic Dungeon. Against my better judgment, that's what I'll do. I look, Alkindun, what can go wrong on Alkindun? There is nothing to go wrong, literally. So that's what we did. The bosses die really quickly. The trash isn't that bad. There are quite a few for Mythic Everbloom, but I can't be doing with Everbloom just because of that little hillock you got to try and jump up. And I just jump up like an idiot and wait till someone else helps me up, or we just decide to go around. But this sort of thing, I thought, and it was like, 715 item level minimum, and no issue with anyone's item level. The DPS was fine. The tank was never in danger of dying to mechanics on bosses, and the healer's absolutely fine as well. This should be a breeze, okay? And 300 valor points. As I say, it's double a Hellfire Citadel LFR, but I've now done all those wings anyway, so I'm left with Blackrock Foundry and Heimel ones. But then you get mad things like this happening. I mean, why did he go into that? And you're just thinking, and now the tanks died. The tanks jumped into all that mess as well. I mean, you surely know, if you've got that much item level, you've done these dungeons enough. I mean, okay, I've forgotten these dungeons a lot, but even I know not to jump onto those imps as melee. Let range deal with them. And we had this sort of going all the way through. The first 2 bosses were sort of okay. It has to be said. I mean, I wasn't recording from the start. I started recording when it started going a little bit wrong, and I thought to myself, do you know what? This is actually going to show the reason why I don't particularly like doing this. If you notice, I'm not jumping into that lot. I mean, what the hell was he playing at? We've got range. Let them deal with it. You do what you can from a distance. You can maybe stun and interrupt a little bit, but you don't jump into the middle of that lot. Then we're just coming up to a boss, and of course what you want to do is to avoid all mechanics you can. So the last thing you'd want to do is pop the DPS ring, as has just happened there. What a corker. So here's me hoping against hope that we'll wait 20 seconds for the ring to reset. I mean, okay, frankly, it's not going to be needed in the end. I'm refusing to use my cooldowns here. I'm going to wait till the ring's off. I'm going to wait for the ring before I do anything. Few seconds to go, then I'll pop stuff. Not before. There we go. Now I'll pop stuff. It's not necessary, granted. But at the same time, you want to use the ring sensibly. You would think people, if they're asking for people of this item level, we know they're not necessarily really good players, but you'd think you'd know the basics. And as I say, I mean, none of these were wipes. I died quite a lot of times, which I'm less than impressed with, because it gets you a repair ball that's totally unnecessary. But, none of them were wipes. You could still argue that the time it took, excuse me, more efficient to do it this way than it is to do the LFR, but it's just the level of frustration. I expect people to do vaguely foolish things in LFR. But I don't expect it in a mythic dungeon where you've got an insistence that people be 715 item level above. The only way realistically to get that, you are at least doing some like normal or heroic raids. Even if your arse is being carried, maybe you're a social in a guild or something like that, you'd have at least picked up a bit of strategy, I would have thought, in how to do PvE. And that's really the reason why I would much prefer to do LFR than the mythic dungeons. I would rather just sit here doing some work, planning some lessons or marking or whatever while I'm in a queue, wait for the queue to pop, go in there, go through there, because the level of frustration is much lower. And it's simple as that, because my expectations are lower. So that's the reason why I prefer to do LFR over mythic dungeons. I'm not sure what you guys think. But there you go. I just thought I'd throw that out there as it was doing my head in, particularly today. It's Bad Tank Sunday.